I have a feeling that people that watch this might want to disagree with what I'm saying. But tell me this, have you ever lost someone from a gang? Have you ever experienced firsthand your child coming home crying with blood on his hands and just his best friend was just killed? Have you ever experienced that? I doubt it, you know? I doubt many people have, but a big group of people have. Hey everyone, the topic I want to talk about is regarding the black vote and how people have noticed that Andrew Yang is not really doing too well with the black vote right now. And I think a lot of people are kind of wondering like why that is. They're not really sure. And I want to give my perspective on this coming from an area where I didn't grow up in a black neighborhood, but what I did do is grow up in a neighborhood that ended up being really high in poverty. And there was actually a lot of crime going on. And our school system got really bad for quite a few years, especially in the 90s here. So I have a feeling that in areas that have it worse than I did, which honestly it's pretty bad here. Like it was terrible here. Yeah, later on what I'll do is I'll go over some stories of some personal experience, but mostly family experience, and a lot of it is stuff that my brother and my mom experienced that I really want to talk about. And this actually does relate to why I think Andrew Yang is not winning with the black vote currently, and why I think his strategy might need to change a little bit in order to start winning over the black voters. Without a doubt, one thing I realize that's going to happen is a lot of people are not going to like what I'm going to say. It's a double-edged sword, and I think it's worked in his favor up to this point, but I think it's actually backfiring on him in the long run, and I really want to point this out and explain this to people. I just also want to point out to those people that will be upset by this is that if we were to change the name of our movement, that wouldn't change the connections that you've actually made with people. It's not going to change the community that's been formed. However, what it might do is allow more people in to the community that we haven't been able to reach out to so far, namely the black community and probably parts of the Latino Hispanic community. I would imagine, I haven't looked into the Hispanic numbers, but I'll do that when I get home. I just would imagine that in certain demographics, probably with Hispanics between 30 and 39, Andrew Yang's probably polling kind of low with. And from what I've understood with the black vote, he's polling even lower, probably polling close to 1% or even lower with the black vote. So he's really not getting any of the black vote. And his message is very much a message that would help most people of color in general. Now I'm going to finish my drive to the park and we'll discuss the rest over there. All right, so what was I talking about? What I really am talking about is the hashtag Yang Gang. It's brought a lot of people together, and I think that's one of the main reasons why his campaign has actually taken off the way it has, because I don't know if he named it the Yang Gang or if that's just something that ended up taking. But regardless, the Yang Gang hashtag has brought him to this point, but I also think this is the reason why he's not gaining with the black voters. One thing I always think about when I think of the word gang is that in the 90s, gangs kind of took off and became a big thing. If you were in a gang, it wasn't associated with a group of people just gathering and like bonding or being friends for some positive cause. Actually, in the 90s, a gang turned into being a criminal. If you were in a gang, you were actually probably doing something you shouldn't be doing. See, if you were in a gang in the 90s, it was definitely associated with a bunch of negative. And I actually grew up in one of those areas where this negative was absolutely apparent. It wasn't just made up. It wasn't just the news. I can say fortunately I didn't have to experience most of it myself, but my family experienced it firsthand. And if you were in one of these poor areas, a lot of people had to either join a gang or risk being, beat up, hurt, or worse. So joining a gang was kind of like a safety net for a lot of people that didn't have much. And a lot of these gangs did really terrible things, and one of the most common things that ended up happening were shootings. what they would do is, you know, like there would be rival gangs, and you'd have this gang attack this other gang, and they would be shooting. They would literally drive-by shoot, like shoot at houses. And thankfully, I didn't have to go through this era, but my brother did. And he, just to put it, you know, lightly, he actually lost some friends firsthand, saw them be killed. And this definitely changed his whole outlook on life to this day. And I would imagine this story doesn't extend to just my area, because my area was one of the worst of it. It was probably in the top 5, but it was not number 1 by any means in terms of gang activity. And this brings me to my point with black voters. See, I think that a lot of black voters, especially in impoverished areas, experience kind of the same thing, where you had to join a gang to have some kind of safety. And if you didn't have someone that had some kind of status in these impoverished areas, it basically would feel like you had no choice but to join a gang and do basically whatever they tell you to do. Otherwise, you know, just, it was a bad time. And this era died off a little bit, but it still lingers in the back of people's minds. See, the thing is, the people in their 30s and 40s, particularly closer to their 40s, definitely had this experience with gangs. A lot of them lost people that they cared about. They lost friends. People lost family. Anything with the word gang in it, to them is taboo. They wouldn't touch anything with a 9-foot pole if it has the word gang attached to it. And yeah, we all know the Yang Gang isn't a violent gang. But you know what? The truth is, most gangs are not violent to start off with. This term became violent over time because these gangs of people ended up doing bad things, and it got a lot of attention. The word is associated with something negative. I just think of my one area as an example as, yeah, we had it bad here. Yes, there were school shootings, there were drive-by shootings. We have the ghetto, which is a really big ghetto, and then you have the ghetto, the true ghetto within the ghetto, like where all the real bad crime activity happened, and where, you know, there's tombstones all down the road of people that were shot and killed there by drive-by shootings. And I don't think there's any bridging this gap with something as simple as just a word. I know it's just a word, and I know the original meaning probably meant just a band of people coming together, but that's not what it means anymore, and it hasn't meant that for quite some time. Do you see the problem with this? This is what I think. I think the Yang Gang message has done its job. I think it was meant to bring people together and to form a band that was tight-knit and close, and that's going to support Andrew Yang to the end. And it's done that. It's actually achieved its purpose up to this point. And now we're dialing into the big games, and we need to look over the real reasons why we're not winning over black voters or certain minority groups like we should be. His message will help minorities more than it will help anyone else. It'll help black people more than it would probably help anyone else in the country. So what should we do? Am I saying the Yang Gang should disband? Well, yes and no. You can't disband a group of people that are rallying towards an idea that will change humanity as we know it. The Yang Gang has already been formed, but now I think it's time for us to reach further than just the Yang Gang. I think it's time for us to reach to the people that actually need help. We don't need to sound like a group of people that are just the Yang Gang. You know, we're the Yang Gang. No, we need to be the United States of America coming together and supporting a candidate. We need to be United States citizens coming together and supporting a candidate that will help everyone. We don't need to be the Yang Gang anymore. And I think this is the real talk that needs to be heard. I have a feeling that people that watch this might want to disagree with what I'm saying. But tell me this, have you ever lost someone from a gang? Have you ever experienced firsthand your child coming home crying with blood on his hands and just his best friend was just killed? Have you ever experienced that? I doubt it, you know? I doubt many people have, but a big group of people have. And you know what? A lot of them just happen to be black people in impoverished areas where crime just got rampant and nothing was done about it. If you've never had to lose your child or best friend to a gang, their life in front of your eyes, then I think maybe you should take a step back. and think about this and consider other people. People that lost families and friends to a gang, they'll never get them back. We need to change our message. Heed this warning. We need to change our message. Otherwise, Andrew Yang will not gain support with the black voters. Okay, so we just went over the reasons why I believe that using the Yang gang isn't a good phrase to win over the black vote and actually may be hindering his support through the black vote in certain areas, especially impoverished areas and areas that still have high crime rates, for example. The word gang, when someone hears that and they've been a part of a gang that isn't the good kind of gang like the Yang gang, they associate it with pure negative. And this negative association immediately turns them off to Andrew Yang. Someone will hear the word gang and they're like, I don't want to be part of any gang. Why would I want to be part of a gang? Like, you know all the crap that I've already been through with the gangs over here? Why do I want to join another gang just to start fighting and just to have enemies? It's a really negative term. And I think we have to come to terms with that if we want to take Andrew Yang seriously as a candidate, which I do. So this is Matt's work in progress. I'm changing the scenery up, obviously, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the little scenery. Hopefully it wasn't too shaky. I don't even know if I put my image stabilization on. I should really check these things. Anyway, this is Matt's work in progress. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, I'll catch you guys later.